money. Take it out of the equation of your life. And what do you have left? I was thinking about this. Good food, good views, and probably good news. Well, I was really thinking, if you removed money out of your formula for life, what's most important after that? And that would be the priority, which would probably be, in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food and shelter, but then connections with like friends. Well, the reason I'm talking about money today is I'm low on money. And I'm not desperately low. I found ways, not ideal ways, but I found ways to, have money for food. Now, had I have more money, would I be drinking? Perhaps. But it's an extra motivational, Lord have mercy. It's an extra motivational factor for me to not drink. And I was kind of nervous talking about this because, obviously, quit watching the video if you think this is like asking or begging for money. I'm not asking or begging for money. And that was actually one of the weird goals that I had, which was I wanted to go, not in debt, but darn near broke. I wanted to go darn near broke and restart. I wanted a clean slate to really start from just building from this here dirt. I wanted to start from dirt. I wanted just something fresh so I could kind of reinvent myself. And the reason I'm being so honest, I was thinking as I was doing my stretches this morning, was I don't intend to have kids, but if I do, they can watch this and, really see the emotional impact of the words and the stories, because it sucked, because I'm on this like beautiful island and I couldn't really enjoy the clear blue waters. I couldn't really enjoy the naturally occurring waterfall. I couldn't really enjoy a lot of things just because I was thinking about, kind of low here on cash. What am I going to do? And I got to eat. So I had this brilliant plan to skip lunch every day. And the first day was fine. I just took a nap for lunch. But the second day, I became like irritable. And it was basically the dominant thought in my brain, which now that I'm thinking is kind of nice, right? Because usually you think of like bad memories or stuff like that. But me, I was just thinking about dinner. So I came to the conclusion that skipping lunch isn't the solution to my money woes. And to be honest, when you're on an island like this, there's really not much to do. So having lunch is like a social event. And I had to omit myself from a social event, which felt kind of weird because a group of travelers asked, hey, you want to go to lunch? And I was like, don't worry about me. I usually skip lunch. And I'm like, what? And so as I laid in my bed, I was like, that was dumb, because it's like a social thing to get to know people. But the reason, going back to why I'm being so honest, which is if I don't have kids, what's the next best thing, which is influence people. And a lot of teachers, let's see if I can do this. I did it last time, but I don't know if I can do it without dropping anything. Sure did. Teachers influence kids. I can think back to, let me think of a positive moment with a teacher here. I remember Mrs. Hill in 3rd grade. I used to have math anxiety, so whenever math would be the subject that we would study, I'd cry because I'd get so stressed out. I just cared too much. And I remember after school one day, she pulled me aside and she gave me this special rock. And she goes, Michael, I want you to keep this rock in your pencil box. But when you feel you're getting stressed out and you're about to cry, take out this rock. And this rock has magical powers and it will make you stop crying. It didn't. Either the powers weren't that strong or it was a fake rock. It was probably a fake rock. But the point being is, here's this lady who taught me for 1 year out of her like 30 years of teaching. And I still hold on to this moment. And I've had so many other moments. And it got me thinking, well, you can have kids. But what's the point of having kids if you're not influencing them in like a positive way? You know, there's so many stories of like boys and girls turning 18 and they have like scorn for like their natural birth parents, you know, and they consider their step parents or a stranger or a friend at school to be, you know, someone who, you know, raised them or considered them their dad or their mom. So I am your YouTube dad. If you need learning experiences, you know, I'm here to share mine, and that's why I'm kind of sharing it, because I wish it was as easy as just making the hardest decision of just leaving and backpacking, and you would never run into any other problems. I do wish that upon you. That would be amazing. But then at the same time, it makes me value things differently, because now I value this $3 to $5 lunch or dinner as like gold, you know? And if I was back in the United States working, $3 or $5 is like what I spend on lotto tickets, you know? But now that I'm kind of like pinched here, I have a different perspective. So that's what I kind of think about, you know, misfortunate events, unfortunate events, your misfortunes and unfortunate events, which is, I think of them as, you know, like a stimulus to reach a realization quicker than had it just been a positive experience to reach the realization. I'm not saying go seek out negative things just to reach things quicker, but if they naturally pop up, like a flat tire on a motorbike while you're trying to get to the airport and you miss your flight, you know, maybe you'll learn something there. But I think it's really easy just to dwell on the surface level of it, which is, I'm gonna miss my flight, I paid for my flight, and now you're kind of out of luck. And it's not always easy to maintain that positive mindset of just always thinking things are gonna go well, because it's hard when your bank account, you're just seeing it, and it went from having 3 zeros and a 1 in front to, you know, 2 zeros and a 7 in front. So it's tough, you know, but I try to really think back to when I had like my best moments while I was traveling, and the best moments kind of happened when I was just not really worried. And I'm not saying to put a smiley face sticker over your gas tank when it's on E, but try to let those positive moments at least poke through a little bit, because I think it helps. Now ask me in a year if that's still true, I don't know. But I also say some really amazing things. Ooh. There's gotta be a positive in this. Gotta think. But I also say some really amazing things. And I need to rewatch my own videos because, you know, sometimes I got a point. sometimes I got some good words coming out of this here mouth. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do. And so influencing people in a positive way, is it really that much of a difference when you're having kids? And honestly, not really, I think, because you're making an impact. And if you're making an impact, I think that's pretty much a good thing. Whether or not they're your blood kids or not. Would it be cooler? I guess. But then there's some kids that I've taught in schools that are not blood and made me bust up laughing. So, can't really tell you. But I met this German guy a couple days ago. Anyways, point being, that's why I was kind of not in the mood, so to speak. But sometimes you gotta capture yourself not being in the mood, because then you can look back and think, look at that guy. I'm past that version of that guy, And sometimes you do need to just spill out all the negatives just so they have somewhere else to go. But going back to the German guy I was talking to, we went kayaking during sunset. Okay, now that I'm talking out loud, it's a little romantic, but it wasn't romantic. It was cool. And we're talking about, the values of Germans and the values of Americans. And they're pretty similar, especially in terms of, work-life balance, because we kind of just value work a lot and making money. And money's good, don't get me wrong. If I had a solution for it, like yapping into a phone to make money, it's a pretty good solution. But we're talking about how the day before, I asked him, because we were playing soccer on the beach with some of the locals here on the island. And I was like, really think. I go, because I can't answer it. When was the last time, and it was a Monday. I was like, when was the last time on a Monday you played soccer on the beach during sunset? And he says, yeah. He goes, I'm so tied up with work, I can't even think. And I go, honestly, for me, it's probably back in high school when I was playing soccer for the soccer team. But the point of all this is sometimes you have to appreciate moments like this and the greenery. But sometimes the lifestyle that we live kind of just makes that non-existent. And I think that kind of just occurred naturally over time, because you have your parents, or let's just say great grandparents, that worked, but they still couldn't afford you. My dad tells the story of the peanut butter goober, which was his parents had enough money for food, but not like luxury foods. And by luxury foods, I don't know if you guys are familiar, we have this thing in America called goober, which is peanut butter and jelly together in a jar. And he said every time they'd go to the grocery store, he'd always ask, Dad, can I get this jar of goober? And his dad'd say no. And then next week, Dad, can I get this jar of goober? His dad'd say no. And then he said one day, he asked his dad, and he said, Dad, can I get this jar of goober? And his dad said yes. And he didn't know what to do. My dad was telling me, he's like, do I just hold on to it until the checkout? Do I put it in the cart? Do I put it in the front part of the cart? What do I do with it? And so money's good, but I think that kind of instilled in my dad, which was I never want to have my kids have to kind of ask repeatedly just for a can or a jar of peanut butter and jelly. I just want them to feel if they want that, they can get it. So then the next generation, me, I start thinking, well, I want even more. And it's just, and I spoke to my dad about this a few times, where it's kind of just like, you just keep improving the cycle, improving. But then sometimes it gets to a point where it's like you improve it so much, like how much can you reinvent a wheel? You know what I mean? Like that motorbike might be, let's just say 2010, but what's the difference between a 2024 motorbike, a 2010 motorbike, and a 2003 motorbike? They both have two wheels, they both function. One might look cooler, but I think if we keep improving, we get to a point of break, and we kind of break ourselves unintentionally, which is, you know, not always ideal and not always intended. But I think that's what's kind of happening now, which is people are kind of overworking to the point of improving something that doesn't need improving. And so some people are taking a step back, like myself, and really trying to assess what really needs to be fixed and assess what really does need to be improved. And I'm finding, you know, just being out in nature like this needs to be reassessed and needs to be improved, because I see a huge lack of it. And I also see a huge jealousy in some people when I tell them that I'm on an island and get to see views like these. Well, not so much that, but maybe this, because I think everyone does wish to live on an island and, you know, enjoy. But we have obligations and we have things that we worked for so long that it just feels like a waste. But it's nice traveling and hearing stories from people that have worked so hard and said, screw it, it's not worth me being unhappy, and they make a change. One example was this guy from Australia. I think he was like 26. He studied to be a lawyer because he thought he wanted to be. But then as he was studying, he realized he hated it. And then he thought to himself, well, maybe if I start practicing law, I'll be happier because I'll be earning money. And then he said he felt even more miserable. And then I stopped him. I'm like, out of 10 being I'm super depressed, 1 being I'm happy as a clam, where were you? He goes, I was an 8 out of 10. I was really, really depressed. And so he quit his job and started working in hostels through, I think the site he used was World Packers. I'm using Work Exchange. And he wakes up, he makes beds, he cleans toilets. And when we went to a concert, I asked him, I go, hey, by the way, I go, you're doing these things that, you know, you don't really need to go to a college for and study 4 to 6 years or however long it is to be an attorney. How do you feel now on the scale 1 to 10? And he goes, I'm a 6. He goes, I'm not there, but I'm getting there. So even if you did work for something and it took you a long time and you're not really happy with it, even if you do make the switch, it's not going to be, you know, an immediate on or off switch where you're immediately happy, because according to him, he was, you know, 6 out of 10 rather than an 8 out of 10. So it's not just perfect once you, I really wish it was like you just make the easiest decision, which is sort of the hardest decision, which is just to decide to change and move yourself physically to somewhere else. But you run into other problems. But those problems might turn you into someone who you never would have imagined yourself being, either more sympathetic or more wise, or improving your gut instinct. So the moral of the story is, I don't know. You tell me what the whole point of this long video was for. Tell me what you got out of it. And I'll have to watch it back and see what I got out of it. Instead of just a sweaty white man with a hairy chest and a hairy stomach just yapping about nothing. But sometimes yapping leads to clapping.